Welcome inside the War Room. I'm your host, Andrew Valancourt, and we're back today for episode 86 of the Dynasty War Room podcast. On today's show, we're going to do a rookie draft redo. So we've gone through most of the fantasy football season, and we now have a really good picture as to where all the various rookies from the 2025 draft class stand. And so we're going to go through the top 24 players, 2 full rounds of a Dynasty rookie mock draft redo. Superflex, tight end premium format, which I think is what the majority of Dynasty leagues are. So we're going to go through that and kick that off in just a minute. But first, I want to remind everyone, as always, make sure you're following this podcast on your platform of choice. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you name it, we're there. So go make sure you are following along so you don't miss any future shows. And find us on social media as well. We're mainly on Twitter or X at Dynasty War Room. You can find our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So go check it out. But Twitter or X is primarily the place that we are. It's a great spot to interact with any questions. We'll do trade polls, that kind of thing, all throughout the year over there on social media. And one more thing, go download Fast Draft. And if you use my code WARROOM, all one word, the code has been fixed. For a little while there, it wasn't working quite right, but it's ready to go. Code WARROOM, all one word. You get a full deposit match up to $50 when you download and play through a contest today. You can do best ball drafts in the off season. You can do daily fantasy lineups during the regular season and the week-to-week basis. So it's an interesting way to experience fantasy football that is different from your typical league. So I highly recommend you go check that out. I do believe that Fast Draft will be coming back to Michigan, where I am, in the spring. So some good news on that front, and we'll have all sorts of fun contests and promotions when that does happen. But for now, for everyone not in Michigan, you can download Fast Draft using the code WARROOM to get that $50 deposit match. All right, so let's jump into a rookie draft redo. So we are entering week 14 of the NFL season, and it's a critical week for the fantasy football playoffs. So hopefully your team has already clinched, and this week does not have to be stressful for you. But we're going to get into the fantasy playoffs more next week and in the coming weeks here as we round out the season into the playoffs. But for now, I thought it was a good time to explore the rookie class. So when you do this too early on, you don't have enough data to really evaluate where players should be going. But here we are, essentially the end of the fantasy regular season. I think we have enough to be able to redraft these players and get a really good feel for what their value is going to be moving on into next season. And so that's what I want to explore here. See how things changed, what we got right, what we didn't, and what players have really jumped ahead or fallen down from where their pre-draft rank was. So all 24 players we're going to talk about, I have their the ranking that I gave them in my post-NFL draft, pre-rookie draft podcast episode, and so we're going to break those down together. So let's start off at the top, where this is nowhere near as easy of a decision as it was back in May. So Ashton Jeanty was the clear-cut number one. He was going there every single league, essentially, and I don't think it's that easy anymore. There's a couple good receivers that have, stood out from the rest in Emeka Egbuka and Tet McMillan, and Tyler Warren is there at tight end, Jackson Dart, along with a couple other running backs that have looked pretty good as well. So to me, the current number one pick in a rookie redo would be Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. He started the year at number 10 in my rookie rankings. He's currently the wide receiver 11 in full PPR scoring on the season. So obviously a really great number to see there. He's a wide receiver 1 as a rookie, which is great. And he's done that despite having an injury where he really was limited for a couple weeks there. And it's been a little bit of a slow go since that injury, but he started the year off really, really hot. It's clear that he's going to be the true number one receiver in Tampa moving forward into the future, especially combined with the various injury issues with both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But Egbuka, to me, you have a more reliable quarterback in Baker Mayfield than you do with Bryce Young over in Carolina and Ted McMillan. Same can be said with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Hunter. But Egbuka, given the hot start, the fact that despite relatively, a bit of a slump that he's in over the past month or so, he's still the number 11 wide receiver on the year. I think he's really going to hold his value. He's in a good offense, good coaching staff. There's a lot to love there for Egbuka moving forward. So he's going to be my number one pick. He's who I would take right now, and I would take Ashton Jeanty number 2. So the former number one pick drops a spot to number 2. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that you would take him 3rd, 4th, or even 5th in this draft class because he's struggled running the ball. He's excelled as a receiver for the Raiders. Now they've been playing from behind a lot, so it's been pretty necessary. The offensive line also is quite bad in Vegas. So that has been very impactful for Ashton Jeanty. He is also an RB1, though, on the season. So he's RB11, and he's had some really good weeks, despite the fact that Vegas has really struggled. They haven't had very many positive game scripts, and the quarterback situation has been brutal with Geno Smith. So I think the future is still very bright for Jeanty. He's still a very young player, was incredible at the college level, has shown a lot of flashes this year. And so the fact that your down year that's kind of been, underwhelming still has resulted in an RB11 season so far to this point, I think is, a really good sign. And so I would still take Jeanty number 2, but again, like I said, I wouldn't blame anyone for having him a couple spots lower on this list. And this really came down to a very tough call for me between Jeanty and Ted McMillan, who's at number 3. So Ted McMillan, Carolina Panthers wide receiver, he was my pre-draft number 4 overall player. He is currently on the season the wide receiver 9, so 2 spots ahead of Egbuka. But he's done so without having his bye week yet, and there's been some inconsistency with Bryce Young, but he has turned it up a notch over the past month or so. So he's really gotten stronger as the year has gone on. He's the clear number 1 receiver in Carolina, which has been a much, much, much improved team under Dave Canales. So I like McMillan a lot. I think it's pretty fair to say at this point that my pre-draft take that Travis Hunter should go ahead of him has not come to fruition. Although, in fairness, the injury has really hurt Travis Hunter and kind of how he can be viewed right now. So, right as he was starting to get hot and going into the bye week, etc. But Ted McMillan, I think, really awesome player, has really solidified that Carolina offense, and so I would have him at number 3. At number 4, I'm going to go to the tight end position and take Tyler Warren. He has been unbelievable in his rookie season. He's the number 4 tight end on the season, and he was my pre-draft number 9 overall player. I had him a spot, 2 spots actually, behind Colston Loveland. That, I think, is very clear. Again, I was on the wrong side of that one with Loveland over Warren, but I still was always a fan of Warren. It was never something where I liked one and not the other. Same kind of situation with McMillan and Hunter. I really liked both players. I was just shooting for the upside, and so far it's been the other way around. So Warren, to me, especially in a tight end premium league, you could make the case that he could be even higher than all of these players. I would fault no one in a tight end premium league for taking him first overall of this rookie class. But he's been that good. The Colts offense has been great. Daniel Jones looks like the future. And what we thought was going to be a really negative situation in terms of the passing game with Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson has turned out to be quite good. So Tyler Warren has solidified himself as a top-level dynasty tight end, probably right behind Brock Bowers and Trey McBride is where he belongs as the number 3 dynasty tight end. And so I think he's perfectly deserving of the number 4 spot in this rookie draft redo. At number 5 is quarterback Jackson Dart, New York Giants QB, And I had him at number 17 going in the middle of the second round in my pre-draft rankings. He was certainly going higher than that by the time we got around to drafts. I was a little bit lower on him. I just wasn't sure about how long it would take for him to actually see the field. I was not sure that it was going to be year one, and instead, he pushed his way to get the job. He's looked really, really good. He's had a little bit of injury issues here with the concussions and whatnot, and so he's got to make sure that he takes care of himself and doesn't take too many big hits. But he's a dual threat guy, and so for that reason, again, in a Superflex league, you could make the case that Dart could be higher on this list. I want to see a little bit more. I want to see him finish the year strong, but he's going to come back next year and be the guy. He's going to have Malik Neighbors back. So things are definitely pointing up for the New York Giants. He's currently the QB 15 on the season. So I'm not 100% fully, on board for, hey, Jackson Dart is the next best thing, but the potential is certainly there. He's been really promising, and I think he is worthy of a top 5 spot in this draft. Now, to me, there's a very clear tier break. A couple tier breaks actually throughout these rankings. I have 5 of them, but the first tier is really 1 through 5. So Egbuka, Genty, McMillan, Warren, and Dart, to me, are the 5 slam dunk guys that are hits. They've looked good, and long-term useful dynasty assets. All 5 of them. So I think that's a very clear separation. I think you are thrilled if you have any of those guys. I think, although in fairness, it is understandable if you are mildly disappointed in Genty, but at the same time, it's hard to be too upset with a top 12 performance at the position. So, the team situation bad, but the player still very talented, has shown that he belongs in the NFL as one of those top level running backs. So that's my top 5. My next tier is going to be picks 6 through 8. So I have a 3-person tier, all running backs. And I think, again, you could place these guys in just about any order. But I'm going to put Amari Hampton from the Chargers at number 6. He was my number 2 overall player, and he's currently RB 44, but that's because he's only played a handful of weeks back at the beginning of the season. He's missed the vast majority of the season due to injury, but he took over the starting backfield pretty quickly, especially given injuries to Najee Harris, and he dominated. He looked really, really good for the couple weeks that he was the full starter, the bell cow guy, and then he got hurt, and he is still not back on the field. We're hopeful that week 14 he'll get, activated from IR and return to the field, but very well could be week 15. So that's certainly been disappointing, but I liked what I saw. I was really high on him pre-draft. I still am high on him in that offense, and so I would have Amari Hampton as my number 6 overall player. At number 7, I'm going to go Travion Henderson from the New England Patriots. He was my pre-draft number 6 player. He's currently RB 18 on the season, and he was somebody that I liked a lot. I think there were others that liked him even more than I did in rookie drafts, but heading into the season, I was very much on board with Travion Henderson becoming the full-time starting running back. Now, the reason I have him at 7 and not even higher on this list or in that first tier is due to the fact that the Patriots coaching staff continues to play Ramondre Stevenson both with and ahead of Henderson. So it started off the year, Henderson was buried on the depth chart, couldn't get on the field, finally does get on the field, he's awesome, and now Stevenson is back and he's still vulturing carries, and this is not a Henderson full-time backfield situation. So given the uncertainty with the coaching staff and their relative unwillingness to just fully unleash Henderson, I'd have him at 7 behind Hampton, who I think is going to be a true bell cow, but Henderson absolutely has the flashiness, the potential, the talent to be a top-flight NFL running back. He just needs to get the opportunity, and I'm hopeful that the Patriots coaching staff continues to give him more work and that he can become that guy that we saw for a few weeks here mid-season. Number 8 on the list, and the last player in Tier 2 is going to be Cleveland Browns running back Quinshon Judkins. I had him at this exact spot in my pre-draft rankings at number 8, And he's the RB19 on the season, despite the whole contract issue at the beginning of the year, missed a game. He is somebody that he's playing on a bad offense. He's not a pass catcher, but he's a grinder. He's getting those yards. He, from a fantasy perspective, has actually done similar things to kind of what you would expect of a rookie version of a Nick Chubb. That style of player for fantasy where you're not getting a ton of receiving work, but you are getting those yards on the ground, full-time bell cow, goal line guy, scores a lot of touchdowns. And so if the Cleveland offense can take a step next year, presumably with a new quarterback or whatever the situation may be, better O-line, I do think that Judkins will prove to be a quality running back to have for the next several years in Dynasty. I would imagine he can take a complete hold of that backfield and keep it without fear of competition, and I think we've kind of seen that from him already. So Judkins is the number 8 player on this list and rounds out Tier 2. At number 9, and kicking off Tier 3, which is actually a pretty big tier, it's my largest tier of this group. Players 9 through 15 are all very similar to me, and I think you can go in a lot of different ways. But at number 9, I'm going to go with Colston Loveland, Cleveland Bears. Cleveland Bears. That is not a team. The Chicago Bears tight end. I was staring at Judkins' name while I said that. Loveland is someone that I've been really high on. I loved him in the pre-draft process. I loved him with the landing spot and the draft capital. He was my number 7 overall player. He drops to 9 here. He's currently the tight end 23 on the season, so definitely not all that helpful for fantasy outside of a couple weeks. But I think we see the flashes. This team still plays Cole Kmet quite a bit, and when Kmet missed time, that's when Loveland really broke out. So hopefully, as we move forward, we get into a situation where the Bears will let Loveland really be the primary tight end and get that full workload. But for now, we're just not quite there yet. But in a tight end premium league, I think he belongs up in this spot still. He's playing a lot. We've seen improvement throughout the year, which is what you want from rookies, especially at a position like tight end that sometimes takes a bit of time to learn, although we have been spoiled the past couple of years with the Bowers and Laporta with the rookie seasons. But Loveland, I still think tons of potential in a good offense. I would imagine there's going to be some changes in the offseason in terms of who some of the other weapons are in the passing game, whether that's a DJ Moore trade or Cole Kmet moving on, whatever the situation is. There has been a bit of a too many mouths to feed situation in Chicago, which is generally what everyone was worried about. And so we've gone from, well, all these players are great and talented to, well, we don't know who we can actually play on a week-to-week basis. And that's exactly the situation that we are now in. So future is bright. He's still very, very young. He came into the draft at age 21. So long career ahead for Loveland, and I think it makes him a really good dynasty asset. Right behind him, and in fact, I really went back and forth about who should be 9, who should be 10, but I have Travis Hunter at 10 right now. He was my number 3 overall player in the rookie process, and he's missed most of the season, of course, due to the injury that he suffered right after his huge breakout game. So that was really, really disappointing and tough because it felt like things were finally connecting for Hunter and Trevor Lawrence. And Lawrence had finally turned a corner with him, had shown that there was some trust, and you felt like the breakout for the rest of the season was going to be coming. Brian Thomas Jr. clearly has not been the same this season. Some of that due to his own performance and just issues that he has, health, but also the connection with Trevor Lawrence has never really seemed to develop. Remember, a lot of Brian Thomas' success came with Mac Jones last year. So lots of different things at play here. And so the timing of the injury is really what stinks the most because I think we were robbed of a real breakout, which, if that had been able to happen, probably has Hunter back in that top 5 group. But for now, because of the injury, he has not had the full, complete, breakout in the back half of the season. He's going to have to do it next year. And I think that, definitely hurts his dynasty outlook, at least for now. Certainly still has a ton of the potential, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up being one of the better rookies overall in this class. It's just going to take a longer amount of time than we all would have liked. All right, next up, I got a couple tight ends, and I think you could put these guys in either order, but for now, I went with Oronde Gadsden at number 11. Chargers tight end, he makes a huge jump up to number 11 into the first round, whereas he was marked as a late fourth round guy in my rankings. So he was right around the very end of the draft, and so he's gone all the way from late 40s to number 11. And so he was a player that, if he was available in the mid to late fourth round, I would take a shot on him, especially in all the leagues that I had Justin Herbert. I got sniped in a couple of those, but he was a player that I liked, and I have him on multiple teams, including the Listener League show for this podcast, and he's been really good. He's been awesome. He broke out early. He's gotten on the field, and the connection with Justin Herbert has been great. A little bit of a downward bump here the past couple weeks that has me mildly worried, but overall, I think he's locked in that starting job, and it's an offense that you want pieces of, and so Gadsden to me is somebody that can give you those high-end weeks that can help you win, and that's why I have him at 11, despite the fact that overall in the season he's tight end 19, which is worse than the guy right behind him, and that is Cleveland Browns tight end Harold Fannin Jr., who comes in at number 12. He's the tight end 11 so far in scoring on the season, and I had him at number 28 coming into the process. He was a player that I was really high on really early in the process, and then after the draft he fell. It was kind of a weird situation, going to Cleveland where they had Njoku, but he has really capitalized on his opportunities, and I think he's one of the players on this list that really would have the chance to rise over one more year. If we were to do this exercise at the end of next season, I could absolutely see Harold Fannin Jr. and Oronde Gadsden, but Fannin especially, if the quarterback play can improve, I could see him jump into the top 10 on this list and just be a really steady long-term option at the position. So I think, the people that were able to get him in the early third round of Dynasty rookie drafts, I think are thrilled, very, very happy. That's about as good as you can get with that type of pick. So Harold Fannin Jr. with a really impressive rookie year rounds out our first round. At number 13, I have Denver Broncos running back R.J. Harvey. He was my number 12 overall player. He's currently the RB24 on the season, and it took him a J.K. Dobbins injury to really get in the field a whole lot. He was getting some receiving work, but he needed that Dobbins injury to take over the backfield, become the starter, and he's still splitting a little bit of work with Jaleel McLaughlin, which has been probably a little frustrating for R.J. Harvey managers, but I still am of the belief that Harvey is going to end up the running back that you want to own in 2026. I don't know if Dobbins will return to the team. I don't know what his injury situation is going to look like, but R.J. Harvey, they drafted him in the second round. He's been a pretty good running back, especially in the red zone and through the passing game, which are those money downs for fantasy football. So like the potential there, and I have R.J. Harvey at 13. At 14, I have another running back. This time it is New York Giants rusher Cam Skattebo, who also is injured and is out for the rest of the season, but I had him at number 18 in my May rookie rankings. He's the RB25 on the season still, despite missing, the last month or so. And again, the potential is there. He took over that backfield from Tyrone Tracy. He is part of that group with Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart that could really turn things around in New York. So I like the potential. I think Tracy is still going to be a bit of a thorn in his side, especially in the passing game. But still love the talent, great player, and once he gets healthy, which could be a challenge, his style of play does lend itself to future injuries. He's a very tough runner and whatnot, but I think he can be the starter and a starting running back. Getting that type of player with the 14th overall pick is really good value in my mind. At 15 and rounding out Tier 3, we have Cam Ward, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. I had him at number 5 in my May rankings. He's QB 28 on the season. He's been really disappointing. That's pretty much the bottom line, is Tennessee as a whole has absolutely stunk. They fired their coach. Their O-line is terrible. They've got very low-level wide receivers, a couple of rookies, but nothing special on that offense, and it's been a tough watch. He's had a couple better weeks recently, including a very nice game against Seattle, so at least some positivity for him moving forward. That's why he's still in this tier, still at number 15, especially in a Superflex league. That quarterback position does still carry a lot of value, so he's going to have to make some big improvements. I think the rest of the year is going to be important for him. He's going to have to show, some more growth. The coaching staff, the new situation, whoever they bring in, hopefully will be an offensive guy that can take the talent that Ward has and figure some things out with that offense, because it's just not working right now. They're headed for another number 1 overall pick. I don't believe that Tennessee would move on from Ward. I just don't think that's the case. I don't think there's a quarterback prospect in this draft that is good enough to warrant that. Ward is going to have another year as the full-time starter, hopefully in a better situation, and so you just have to kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best. All right, so moving on to tier number 4, which is going to go from 16 to 21. So we are pushing into the middle of the second round here with this tier. And I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins, who I also had at number 16 back in May. And he is the current wide receiver 48. He has been a player that has gotten better as the year has gone on. So he's getting more involved in the offense. He's scored a couple touchdowns. He just looks a little bit more at ease compared to the beginning of the season when it was clear that things just weren't quite there yet. But now he's solidified himself as the number 2 on that team. He has a bright future. I think that as long as Houston can hopefully fix some of their O-line issues, and they'll probably need to improve the running game a bit too, but Jaden Higgins, I think, is going to have some solid fantasy value, I don't know if he'll ever be like a wide receiver 1 or anything like that, but certainly a flex-worthy player at some point that could develop into a pretty nice NFL wide receiver 2. At number 17, we're going to go with a teammate of Higgins. We're going to go to running back Woody Marks for the Houston Texans. I had him as RB30 in the pre-draft process back in May, and he is currently the RB30 on the season in redraft scoring. And Woody Marks is a player that has really capitalized on his opportunity. He was somebody that I was higher on in my rankings. He was a guy that Houston gave up a lot in the draft to go get, and he has been better than Nick Chubb. The injury to Joe Mixon, of course, has been important, but he was a player that I liked a lot. He was an honorable mention in the My Guy show, and I think he's been a pretty solid player to have. He hasn't given you much in the way of huge breakout games, but he's been a solid, consistent performer. He does catch passes, and so I think he's a solid low-end RB2 that can get you some points, be a start-worthy player if needed. I don't know that you would love starting him every single week, but certainly somebody you can plug into a flex and just have in your lineup as needed. And I think for a guy that was going in the third and fourth round of rookie drafts, the fact that he's going here all the way at 17 is a great mark for him. At number 18, I'm going to go with Jets rookie tight end Mason Taylor. He was my number 21 player pre-draft. So despite the fact that he hasn't really done a whole lot this year, he does move up a few spots. And he's the tight end 25 on the season. I think that he's getting the playing time. He has secured the number 1 spot on that team at tight end. But the quarterback situation is a complete disaster. Justin Fields, bad. Tyrod Taylor, bad. The offense as a whole has just been awful, and I think they really need to bring in both a quarterback, another wide receiver. They need to help the O-line. The offense just has a lot of problems. So the Jets, at least they know they don't need a tight end, because I think Mason Taylor is going to be the guy there for the next handful of years. And if they can somehow find a way to improve their QB play, that will certainly benefit Mason Taylor. And at this point in the draft, there's not a lot of big hits left. It's more projections for the future, relying on the draft capital, things like that. So Mason Taylor checks in at number 18. At number 19, I'm going to go with Bears wide receiver Luther Burden. He was my number 13 player back in the spring, and he's currently the wide receiver 72 on the season. So pretty disappointing rookie year so far. However, he's starting to become more involved in the Chicago offense. Although it has been slow, it's taken more time than we've wanted. Zacchaeus over there was stealing away snaps and targets and whatnot from Luther Burden. But again, the draft capital of an early second-round pick. The Bears have figured some things out this year. They're looking like a playoff team. In fact, they're in first place in the division right now, to everyone's surprise. And I think Burden is a guy that is worthy of taking a shot on with the 19th pick in a rookie draft, given the offense and the potential. Still too many mouths to feed, but again, if you're playing for 2026 and beyond, hopefully there are some changes that help everybody out and can get Burden on the field more. So that's the hope there. And at number 20, we're going to have a teammate of his. So also on the Chicago Bears, running back Kyle Monangai, who was one of those late fourth-round picks. In fact, I think I had him as my very last player in my four-round ranking, so number 48. And he is the RB31 on the season, so he has definitely outperformed his position in the rookie drafts. And the fact that he's going here at the 20th overall pick on our redo says a lot, because he's been great ever since he got involved in the offense. He has been truly the power back for the Chicago system. And I think he's played well enough that I think he can lock down that role moving forward. I don't know that he needs to worry about getting drafted over next year. Now, it certainly could be a concern, especially for a late day 3 NFL draft pick. You just don't have a lot of job security, but he's been really impressive. He's a good goal line running back. He's made DeAndre Swift better. And so both guys have really been productive for fantasy. And again, the Chicago offense, you want pieces, and you just hope that it's your guy's day within that offense, because they're not all going to go off. But Kyle Monangai has been a really nice late round value from where he went back in May. All right, now the last player in this tier is going to be Jacksonville Jaguars running back Bashal Tutin, who I have him here at 21. He was number 19 in May, and he is the RB48 on the season, so hasn't done a lot, but he's had a couple nice games. He has been the clear number 2 behind Travis Etienne, but I do get the sense that we are moving towards a Tutin backfield in 2026. So that's kind of the vibe that I get from the situation. I don't imagine that Etienne is going to get an extension. So I think that Tutin and probably another rookie will end up in some form of a committee next year. Although it certainly is a possibility that Tutin can command that backfield and do some nice things in fantasy moving forward in 2026 and beyond. But for now, he is kind of more in that handcuff role. Still valuable, but hasn't quite done what I think people were hoping for in rookie draft season. And so he's fallen a couple spots in these rankings. All right, now in the final tier and rounding out our rankings, I have a couple guys here that it's all projection and just hope for the future. So at 22, Tyler Shuck, quarterback from the New Orleans Saints, and he is someone that I had at number 25 in my rookie rankings, and he has taken over the job in New Orleans. He's been okay, nothing special, nothing completely horrible, but he still has a lot to prove here over the remainder of the season if he wants to keep the job. So this is one of those picks that is a risk. It's a big risk. It's something that obviously in the offseason we'll know a lot more about how the Saints feel in terms of their draft pick, who's available, that kind of thing. But he's done just enough that I think there is a possibility he keeps the job at least for one more year. And so when you have a quarterback in that type of situation, I think you have to include him here on this list as a late second-round pick, because if he somehow manages to show enough to keep the job and then takes another step forward, all of a sudden you've ended up with a really nice bargain at the QB position. So for those reasons, I think the risk is worth it at this point in the draft, and so he moves up to number 22 overall. At 23, I'm going to go with Chargers wide receiver Trey Harris. So I had him at number 14 pre-draft. I loved him. He's a player I was a big fan of coming out of Ole Miss. And then his situation got nuked a bit because Keenan Allen signed back with the Chargers. So he has been on the field a lot. Ladd McConkey, obviously there. Quentin Johnston has had a really nice season. He's kind of broken out, and that has hurt Trey Harris. So this is another speculation, future projection type of pick where if Keenan Allen retires or moves on, that you would have to think Trey Harris gets on the field a bit more in at least that wide receiver 3 role next year, with the potential of jumping up to wide receiver 2 at some point in his career. But the lack of playing time as a rookie has been a bit frustrating, but he has seen the field a little bit more as of late. And so I'm still holding out hope, but I think this probably tells you about kind of how the draft class has really shaken out, that there's not a more established player to take at this point. But here we are. We're going back to the hype, the projections. And so Trey Harris at number 23. And rounding out this 2-round mock draft is going to be Packers rookie wide receiver Matthew Golden, who was number 15 on my list, a spot behind Harris. He's also been a huge disappointment. Despite being a first-round pick, he's gotten on the field a good bit. Now he's hurt, missed a few games, and he's just not looked all that great on the field. I didn't love him back in the rookie process. Obviously the draft capital was nice, but I was never fully in on Matthew Golden, and I still am not there. It's been a rather disappointing beginning to his career, and to me, the number 1 receiver in Green Bay is back to being Christian Watson. So, we all thought that he's gone. It's the injury, he's struggled, whatever, but he's back now. He's taken a hold of that number 1 job, and Tucker Kraft is the true number 1 threat in the passing game when he's healthy. So I think that leaves Golden in a situation where he's probably the third option in the passing game at best. But Romeo Doubs has outperformed him. So I think you certainly still take him here in the second round because of the draft capital, the first round pick. But I'm not holding my breath that he's going to turn into some awesome, amazing receiver. So there you have it. There's my top 24. I think my next 2 picks in some order would probably be Pat Bryant and Shamir DK from the Titans. There are a couple other names that I think are a little bit interesting in the early third that are about the same types of players that went in this range at that time. Terrence Ferguson from the Rams, who hasn't been on the field a whole lot, but still some potential. So lots of other names that are worth keeping an eye on. But this draft clearly, to me had I think there's a pretty big cutoff after that, top 20, 21 picks or so. But, you're probably thrilled with the guys in the top, 14 to 15 range, that we mentioned on today's show, not from back in May, but, there's a lot of players that went in that late first, early second that have struggled a lot. A key name that's missing here is going to be Caleb Johnson. He's completely fallen off. He's buried on the depth chart. Coaches don't trust him. I just think he's somebody you're stashing on your team and just hoping for the best because you spent, the 111 on him. And, so that's been a really tough scene for him. We mentioned guys like Trey Harris, Matthew Golden, who were early second round picks and have fallen down, in their value. And but then there's been some players that have really rose up, risen up in the rankings. Egbuka from 10 to 1, Jackson Dart from 17 to 5, Tyler Warren up from number 9 to number 4. So, some good situations there for some guys. A lot of guys that are pretty much turning in exactly what you would expect. So we mentioned some of those running backs that were going in the first round. Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, all pretty solid. Genty, and then there's some tight ends that have surprised as well. So Gadsden, Fannin, guys like that have really come on as rookies. So overall, I think it's turned out to be a fairly solid draft class. Nothing to the level of a couple years ago when we had the Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, that whole class, Marvin Harrison, and I think that with the quarterbacks and the receivers and all that is going to end up being one of the more special classes of all time. But a pretty solid average rookie season, I think, a rookie draft class from this group, where you're definitely going to get a number of really quality round one players and some good assets to build around, but not something where there was a ton of depth. But I think you see that, and that's why, those third and fourth round picks, if you can use them in trades to maneuver around, it makes a lot of sense because you gotta have some luck involved. So in this top 24, the only players that were going after the top, we got a handful of players actually that made this list that were outside my top 24. Gadsden for sure is the big one, along with Monungai. Those guys were, late fourth round picks that have vaulted into the top 24. Woody Marks is up from the third round, as is, Harold Fannin. And then you got Tyler Shuck, who's moved up 3 spots. So those are really the names that have jumped up in a big way from outside of the top 24 picks. And, I think that gives you a pretty good summary for where we are with this draft class. Thank you all very much for tuning in. We had a week off there with Thanksgiving and whatnot, so I hope everyone had a good holiday. And, we may be, there may be a skipped week again upcoming here, depending on how things shake out. I'm sure, especially when we get into the holiday season with Christmas and New Year's and all that good stuff, we'll probably have a week or two off here and there. So stay with me, follow along on Twitter. That's where you're going to get the best show updates. And I appreciate you all for tuning in and listening. My name is Andrew Valancourt, and you have been listening to the Dynasty War Room Podcast.